Ukraine, for Kiev, with the missiles, explosions, destruction. We decided that the Russian missiles should not cancel our meeting, but we then had to transform it from being a hybrid meeting to an only online meeting. And thanks for your flexibility in that regard. We do have interpretation available. You can choose in your Zoom platform. I hope it is working the way it should. If any issues, then please let us know. Welcome to our special guest today, the head of the National Corruption Prevention Agency. We at the EUACI are really happy to host this meeting today. I think if there will be one clear message coming out of our meeting, it is that the fight against corruption didn't stop with Russia's invasion. Instead, what we see the fight is now being fought even more forcefully. Despite the war, despite staff being in the army, despite severe budget cuts, despite hours in shelters, days without electricity, the anti-corruption institutions and the court continue functioning, deliver on their mandates. Our program are there to help. It has not always been IT systems and training that has been on top of your priority list. Sometimes it has been generators, emergency equipment, and then we delivered that so that the institutions and the court could continue functioning during these very, very difficult months for Ukraine. I would even say that it's like your staff were even more dedicated and even more motivated to fight corruption and to make a difference for your society. And they're not alone. I think more than ever, Ukrainians want to get rid of corruption. We can see that from surveys that have been conducted. Ukrainians want to build an even better society. They want to be sure that all the hardship they're going through, all the sufferings, will not be in vain. During the last few weeks, NABU and SABU have again demonstrated their capacity, their will, and their successes. A number of new corruption cases were revealed, also high-level cases. And also during these weeks, we saw new decisions made by the High Anti-Corruption Court. Some corrupt officials were sentenced to prison, one for up to 9 years. And during these weeks, the NACP has struggled to get the new ambitious state anti-corruption program approved. You're almost there, and I know you're not going to give up. I'm sure the audience is eager to learn more about your results, and I will not take up more of your time. I'm certain that the results you're going to show next year will be even more impressive. And with these words, I will introduce my deputy, Iryna, who will moderate. I will give the floor to you, Iryna. Are you there?
Вітаю, колеги. Чи мене чутно? Чудово. Вітаю усіх глядачів та глядачок, які слідкують за
I hope you can hear me. Thank you for following our discussion from the shelters, from your homes, from your offices. We hope that you and yours are in
Ми продовжуємо.
regardless of this new attack against Kiev, the missile impact, missile attack, we continue as the interlocutors, representatives of the anti-corruption institution, the court, have done. They can discuss for hours their achievements, their cases they shaped. But unfortunately, we have just 1 hour for this, so we would like to ask all the participants to observe the timelines, and we are discussing the principal key results of this work that we have achieved during last year, and every participant has up to 5 minutes. And the first speaker is Oleksandr Novikov, head of National Agency on Corruption Prevention. Alexander, many people think that declarations are suspended, and that means that you have nothing on your plate. And On the contrary, as far as I know, last year was very busy for you. Can you share with us the top 3 achievements of the agency as of last year, in your opinion? Oleksandr, thank you. Iryna, I would like to thank Anti-Corruption Initiative of the EU and Iryna Shyba personally, because she was the first representative for our, on behalf of our international partners who actually visited our agency when we even resided in the office during the first 2 months. And our principal achievements are about the invincibility of our agency with your support, our resilience with building up institutional capacity, our autonomy in terms of energy supply. Now we can communicate with you during the air raid, and this is one of the visible achievements. Secondly, we switched to the innovative methodology of management and created by Intel for us and using by Google. The top 10 companies are involved for the personnel to get all the necessary training in Kyiv Mohyla Business School. And so we are 10 times more effective now. And we, that brings us to the third principal achievement, capacity building, and we are quite resilient for the war threats, because this year we actually made our IT systems much more resilient. We placed them in cloud services of Amazon in the European Union, and also we provided for development of our IT solutions and created such IT products which have no end. If we develop our third achievement, we have provided in our portal police data reports from all the election campaigns taking place in Ukraine, not just reports from the political parties. And the cultural changes should be imprinted in the educational products that we offer. And the state's anti-corruption program and the strategic paper, which is being now reviewed by Prime Minister, and hope that not later than tomorrow, preferably today, is going to be approved, and that will support all our colleagues on this call. But I will refer to this later in my principal intervention. Thank you for the tea that you offered me in March. I remember the rapport, the atmosphere that I discovered there in your agency after this year of full-scale invasion. We still maintain it, I hope, and I believe simply. Our next speaker is Deputy Head of Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, Andriy Semennykov. And for a long time, the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office had no head. Now we have the head and the deputy in place. With the new leadership, with the new changes, Andriy Semennykov will discuss this with us. Thank you very much. Thank you for your introduction. The full-scale invasion that we had last year was a challenge for the Ukrainian state, Ukrainian statecraft, and the anti-corruption office is included together with NABU, NACP, and the court. So we are fighting corruption, and we can offer some result after the latter half of last year. We can see that it is intensified considerably versus last year. Despite all the obstacles, one of the challenges is that prosecutors of our prosecutor's office are mobilized to join the armed forces. This is 1/4 of all the prosecutors of our prosecutor's office, and that actually increased the case burden for the rest, for the remaining prosecutors. And we had 8 cases pending with the court. Now it's 14 on the average. So you can see the caseload increased by 75% in the average. And in the second half of 2022, we managed to improve our indicators. And if we compare this with, with our history, all the and the prosecutor's offices, that was the most successful period, the second half of last year. 149 persons received charges against 56 criminal cases against 135 people filed. In parallel, we had the competition, and we selected eight new prosecutors for the anti-corruption. And starting from the 1st of January, they began the operation together with our more experienced mentor prosecutors. They
здійснюють процесуальне керівництво у кримінальних провадженнях. Крім того,
providing supervision for criminal proceedings together with NACP. We had civil forfeiture. We had achievement recently. It was made effective, came into force, and now we have good revenues to the state budgets by way of compensation, and also transfers for the armed forces. And together with NABU, we provided for the asset recovery and the funds exceeding 1 billion hryvnia in total value. This year, of course, we are going to keep the pace at the same level in high, but the caseload is growing for our prosecutors and the detectives, supporting them. As a result, this is also reflected on the caseload of the court. This is something we have to experience now already and find solutions. One of the solutions that we might think of is legislative changes that we have in 8402 draft tabled the Parliament. It solves many technical problems which can make it possible for us to simplify, streamline our work, and to remove many bureaucratic red tapes. And we are independent, but we are answerable in many issues to the General Prosecutor's Office, with the General's Office, and we are dependent on their support and the Prosecutor General himself. In addition to that, this draft will help us with the competition, the selection of the head of the prosecutor's office, and selection of the prosecutors for it. There are some issues we have to give some consideration, give some thought already now. These streamlined procedures for filing criminal cases, because with such a school of criminal cases that we refer to high anti-corruption courts, gradually arrive at the stage when this load is too much for both prosecutors and the judges, and we have to decide whether we review that with the same procedure, but we need more people at the court, at the prosecutor's office, or we have to streamline the procedure and make it easier to accomplish. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrei. You are right. Rate is going up with the investigation. It's even higher than in 2021 in NABU. So we'd like to listen to Gizo, Uglava about their achievements and the way to accomplish that. Thank you. You have to unmute. Good morning. we are living through very difficult times, and the format of our meeting has changed abruptly, unexpectedly, but we can say that we never stop our work, not for a moment, and the anti-corruption prosecutor's office also supported us with the increase of the rates, and the prosecutor was appointed in the latter half of the year. The head of the anti-corruption prosecutor's office and the anti-corruption uh, court now has
Устойчивость.
experienced another competition, another selection, but the system works nevertheless. Let me discuss the results, not repeating Andrei's remarks. We had a conversation on that earlier, but the number speaks for itself, but not for the quality. Our principal area is systemic corruption, and especially in the second half of last year, we demonstrated that we were ready to fight systemic corruption. One of the um, loudest cases was the Odessa case with an organized group which was trying to take over in Odessa with the Deputy Minister of Regional Development and Infrastructure, who during the war actually embezzled the governmental funds, and this is just the beginning. We will develop this case because we can see from the files that that was not just that one agency, but also included some other. Were not confined to anti-corruption activities. We are still helping the Ministry of Defense, the different intelligence offices and intelligence services, 12,000 messages alone with the Ministry of Defense and different intelligence services used during the war. 164 facilities were destroyed, where the Russian troops were deployed, or depots arranged for the aggressor. We have to say that for the Ministry of Defense, we transferred more than 1 billion hryvnias, and the economic effect of our agency this year is 1.9 billion hryvnias. This is the money coming back to the state-run enterprises, coming in compensation and other forms. Despite this difficult period, we never stopped our development, and with your assistance, we continued development of e-case management, which we pioneered in Ukraine. I should mention that we have 327 cases filed through the system, and we hope that we will have it working in full capacity already by the end of spring this year. We continue our operations, and the most important conclusion for us is this new director. Well, it's a very important arrival that we are expecting by the end of this month, hopefully, and it is important to have more people here on more capacity. Without that, we cannot develop and demonstrate the best results expected of us. And fighting corruption is just at a latent stage, and we have a lot to investigate still. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gizo. Thank you for your information, and you demonstrated for our viewers that anti-corruption here can not just invest but generate funds, provide some recovery, and support the armed forces and the high anti-corruption court. We have two representatives of this court. First is Oleh Pavlyshyn, our acting head of the High Anti-Corruption Court, Oleh. I know that you celebrated your 100th sentence recently. Is it a lot or is it not enough? And can you discuss your operations last year in general? Thank you.
Попрошу вас включити звук.
Please get unmuted. Our court
Лютого минулого
on the
року
24th of February last year has been never idle, and despite the martial law, if we compare our achievements with 2021 and 2022, we passed more sentences than in 2021. 2021 we had 27, in 2022 34. And this year we already passed 6 sentences, and so we are working definitely better and every year. And we also increase not just the number of cases we manage, but the jurisdiction is expanded now. We now review civil confiscation and application of sanctions. And if we take statistics for the period, we had 14 administrative claims filed, and out of which 11 have been reviewed already and partially or completely satisfied. So we never turned down a claim during this period. And we also had 5 claims and satisfied, upheld 4 of them. If we take this as many or not too many 100 sentences, we are a collegial body, so review, and we have a bench of 3 judges. And for that period, we had about 10 investigative judges involved. So that was for the first instance case, it's 18. That was our judicial personnel. But the working day is divided or distributed as the caseload among 6 judges. For this kind of review, only 6 judges on a daily basis can review their cases. And considering this 100 sentences is a lot. And we can, of course, review more cases if you change the legislation, solve the issue of individual judges, one judge handling the case, or we can increase the number of them. So the efficiency will depend on opting for the first or the second arrangement. And so we have reviewed 600 Article 1.6 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, and the judges, the judicial system provided 1.2 billion hryvnias for the Ukrainian defense. So our judiciary took into account the circumstances of the war and provided for defense of the country. I hope that our problems, I'm not discussing energy supplies, blackouts and so forth, but this is about, first of all, the performance, quality of performance. So it can be solved with either amendments to the legislation for the composition of court in courtroom or increasing the number of judges. I would like to ask you, Oleh, about the sanction cases, because this year your court started receiving some cases from the Ministry of Justice for asset recovery. And how many cases are you handling right now? We have received 14 claims of that nature, out of which we reviewed 11. and the decisions which were taken, the claims are partially, fully upheld. We never turned down a claim.
Дякую вам дуже. Ми переходимо до
So
нашого
we
наступного
satisfied
спікера,
all of
Олександра
them.
Семеннікова,
Our next
голови
speaker
апеляційної палати
is
Вищого антикорупційного суду.
Oleksandr Semennykov, head
Олександр,
of the
вам
appeal
слово.
chamber of the High Anti-Corruption Court. The floor is yours, Alexander. Thank you. Now, I would like to say that on the 24th, the invasion affected operations of our chamber. The security considerations for the parties and the court personnel. Thank you for the anti-corruption initiative, which provides for continuous work of the chamber. There was material support also with the energy supplies. We are very grateful. The equipment was provided, the turnkey solutions, which influence critically our ability to operate and adjudicate. Most importantly, we have to say that through this period, almost by 1.5 times, we increased the number of cases being adjudicated. By 2 times, we increased the period of court review for one case versus 2021. The same period we reviewed 450. Through this period, we received 631 cases on appeals, and 549 were substantially reviewed. The criminal investigation 662, 544 in civil, 6 appeals, 4 reviewed administrative cases, the sanction cases, and particular 2 claims reviewed substantially, and the administrative. Out of 542 cases, 450 were claims against the complaints against judges in appeals, and 20 motions for referral from our court to another court, 9 technical cases, and also 21 cases.
На розгляді палати перебуває 30 кримінальних проваджень щодо перегляду вироків першої інстанції.
30 cases to review sentence, 2 have decisions, 16 of the investigation. 3 sentences, 199 for 368, 364. This article was in 4 cases, 2 cases, 369 of the criminal code, and also revenues to the budget 211 and 185, one each respectively. So the 6 appeals were reviewed, 6 we received, and 2 are still pending with the chamber. 4 reviewed, 3 upheld, and 1 dismissed. With the sanction cases, as Mr. Pavlyshyn said, 2 reviewed, 1 fully upheld, and 1 partially. And for the cassation cases for the same period, we have to say that in 20 cases we send them down, 3 dismissed, 3 sent to the claimant, and 3 upheld. 2 cases now with the chamber pending, with the
за спливом строків досудового розслідування.
judges and the One case was dismissed
І
because
насправді
of the
сказати,
violation
що
of the
як зазначив
deadlines for
апеляційна
pretrial
палата,
investigation.
незважаючи на
The
всі
Chamber
виклики, в тому
overfilled
числі
despite all the
які стосуються всіх
challenges
органів,
and
щодо
that
енергопостачання,
also
забезпечення
include
безпеки
energy
учасників
supply,
провадження,
security
не припиняє
arrangements.
свою роботу і вчиняє
We
всі рухи
never
необхідні
stopped
для
our
виконання
operations
судочинства в цей
and
складний
we
період. Дякую.
provide adjudication in full for this
Дякую, пане
big difficult
Олександре, за
period.
таку
Thank
детальну
you,
статистику та
Alexander,
інформацію.
for
Ми підвели
the
перший раунд
statistics
основних результатів
information. That
власне
is the
роботи
first round
інституції та
of
антикорупційного за минулий
results
рік. І перед
for
тим, як
our
перейти до
institution.
другої
And
частини
before
дискусії про
we
майбутнє,
switch
я
to the
хотіла би
second
озвучити
part
нашим спікерам декілька
and
запитань від глядачів,
discuss
які ми
the
отримали
future,
під
I would like to share
трансляціями у
some
Фейсбуці та
questions
Ютубі.
that
Нагадую
we
усім, що ви
received
також
for
можете
Facebook and
додавати свої
YouTube
запитання. Пишіть,
broadcasting. You
будь
can add
ласка,
your
до
questions
кого із спікерів вони
and
стосуються.
you have to
І
refer
перше
them
запитання, що
specifically to
для
one of
Гізо
our
Углави,
speakers. One
учасник
question
запитує,
for
чи
Gizo Uglava. The
бачите
question
ви
is
тенденцію того,
whether
що
you can
підслідні
see
НАБУ
any trend
провадження все
that
частіше починають розслідувати інші органи.
your
І
cases
чи
are
плануєте
taken
ви
by
якісь
other
заходи щодо цього?
bodies actually breaching your jurisdiction, and what do you plan to do about such cases? It's a very good question because now we have the overlaps, considerable overlaps in criminal cases. This is in the way of our investigation and then subsequent review in court because the evidence generated by one body and the case investigated by the another. This questions admissibility of evidence in court. And 2 weeks ago, we had that meeting with the Prosecutor General, and from our side, we raised this issue of overlaps, and the Prosecutor General agreed that there was such a problem. It was a problem for all the law enforcement, and we agreed that in the nearest future we would get together and decide on this issue. The legislation is clear about it. We do not have to change anything. We just have to follow it.
Дякую, Гізо. Також у нас є запитання
To
до
enforce
Вищого
it.
антикорупційного
Thank you,
суду.
Gizo.
Воно більше
A
стосується
question
все-таки
to
Олега Павлишина,
High
оскільки
Anti-Corruption
стосується
Court. I
виборів
think
голови
it's
Вищого
for
антикорупційного
the
суду.
solutions about
Наші глядачі
competition
цікавляться, коли
to
можна очікувати на обрання
elect
конституційного
the
суддів.
president
Ми
of the
знаємо,
court.
що
When can we
наступні вибори,
expect this
здається,
to
призначені цього
happen?
тижня.
Because this
Чи буде дим, скажімо так?
week we have another round. We're having another round. Will there be any smoke of election over the chimney of the court? So in the nearest future, and I mean next Tuesday, we'll have an assembly of our judiciary, and there we will, I hope, elect the head of this court. Speaking of the prospects and for this election, I'm sure it will take place. So we promise results by Tuesday. Let's hope so. Another question for the court is about the cases against declarations and the MPs because of the statute of limitation that can happen, and the court failed to review them within observing reasonable deadline. This is not a specific question. I cannot say what procrastination is meant here and what is the meaning of that. Every case is always reviewed in a regular fashion. In terms of time, the deadlines, we take all the necessary measures to operate in a regular way. This is true for all the cases. In the cases where MPs were mobilized or maybe cannot participate in litigation for some reason that we all know, but we never make missed any deadlines. I cannot think of any
Дуже.
such
Наступне
cases.
запитання стосується
Another
всіх
question
учасників,
for all the
а саме
participants,
власне публічні
and that
реєстри,
is
які
about
необхідні суспільству
public
для протидії
registers,
корупції, закриті. Декларації, реєстри
which are
юридичних
closed
осіб,
declarations
податковий борг та
registers
інше.
of
Без
legal
закритих
entities,
даних
the
неможливо
secretaries,
прозорість та
and without
ефективність
open
влади.
data
Чи
we cannot
вважаєте
have
такий стан речей
accountability and
нормальним?
transparency.
Що вже робите?
Is it
Що
a
будете
normal
робити
situation,
для
and
того,
what do you
аби
plan
повернути
to
українцям
do
суспільно важливі відкриті дані? Можливо, Олександр Новіков
to
зможе відповісти на це запитання.
bring this resource back? Well, we need a victory. We are working with the agency on corruption prevention. We plan to minimize the risk. My former deputy Ivan Metropolikov initiated the first draft of the law on confiscation of the Russian assets, which undermines the vertical, and they are now confiscating that property in port, and I hope that that will be also adopted in the EU. And I would like to emphasize about this law that in Transparency International had a competition, and former President Yanukovych was recognized the champion of that competition. So in this very office, we can say that the property belonged to Yanukovych under 41, Article 41 of the Constitution, the symbol of mission, the Merceria estate was confiscated. And together with the security of service, we identified more than 3,000 officials who would not observe public interest, but in conflict with that, they use corruption and work for the aggressor. With the conflict of interest, we informed the security service of Ukraine, and all those people were identified. And thirdly, with the sanctions policy to minimize the risk, we know that in all the world this policy is highly risky for high risk of 24,000 people, 5,000 of which collaborated were sanctioned, 2,000 of them. Those are people who can be blamed for the aggression. And we want to open up the register as soon as possible on other open dates, and we have to win this year. That's what we are aiming at.
Дякую, Олександре. Чи хтось
Thank
із
you,
учасників
Alexander.
бажає прокоментувати це
Anyone
запитання?
willing to complement this answer?
Якщо ні, то ми переходимо до
And
наступного.
otherwise, let's
Власне, один із
switch
учасників запитує, чи
to
глядач,
another
чи глядачка, на жаль, не
question.
знаю, запитує про те,
Is
коли
asking
рівень боротьби з корупцією в
when
Україні
the
досягне
level of
європейських
fighting corruption
стандартів.
will
І,
reach the
власне,
European
як
standards in Ukraine.
впевнена керівника
And
інституції
I'm
чудово
sure
відомо,
that
що одним із кроків до
you,
України
as
як
leaders of
кандидата
your
Європейської
institutions,
комісії
know
є
that
крок
this is
пов'язаний з
one of the
антикорупцією. Я зачитаю
commitments
дослівно
or
частинку
conditionalities
цього
for
кроку.
our accession.
Власне, це посилення
And
боротьби з
what it
корупцією,
says
зокрема
here
на
is
високому
strengthening
рівні,
fight
шляхом
against
активних
corruption,
та
the highest
ефективних
level with
розслідувань, а
active
також
and effective
забезпечення
investigation,
належної
and
динаміки
also
судових справ та
dynamic
винесених вироків.
of adjudication
Другу
and
частину нашої
sentencing.
дискусії я
So,
б хотіла
the second part of our
поговорити з
discussion,
спікерами
I
про
would
те,
like to
як
open
вони
and
бачать в
discuss it
рамках
with the
своїх
speakers
інституцій для
how
України
they
загалом
see for their
можливо виконати цей
institutions
крок,
for Ukraine,
яка
how can
підтримка
we
інституціям
make this
потрібна
step
і
and what
які,
support
можливо,
you need
законодавчі
and
чи
what
інституційні
legislative
зміни.
or
Я б хотіла спочатку
institutional
передати
changes
слово
are
Гізо Углаві.
required
Ви
there.
вже згадали у
First,
своїй першій
Gizo, Uglava,
промові
you
про те,
mentioned
що
in
нам
your first
потрібно
intervention
збільшити
that
кількість
your
штату
agency
та незалежна
needed
експертна
more
установа.
personnel
Чи можете
and
ви трішки
an
детальніше
independent
пояснити
section
нашим
for
глядачам, для чого вам це
experts.
потрібно,
And
і,
why
можливо,
do you need that?
що
Can you
ще
explain?
необхідно для ефективної роботи
And
НАБУ?
what else is necessary for NABU to operate properly and comfortably? In the law that regulates our bureau provides for 700 people, and with this resource we reached our maximum capacity, even with automation for case management and other system, and we are supposed to have up to 7 regional offices. We have just 3 regions, Lviv, Odessa, and Kharkiv. And in that respect, we have to say that the resource that is provided by NABU vulnerable is not enough. With that Odessa organized group, we could see that fighting oligarch reveals the situation that there are some kind of mini oligarchs managing the regions for the big oligarchs. And in order to increase our capacity, we have to increase the number of personnel in our regional branches. And the expert service should be introduced to participate in investigation. We had one case where the analysts were involved, and that was an experiment, and we realized we apprehended Deputy Minister for Regional Development and Infrastructure, and that was very important. The expert section, we have different forensic operations where we have very few objective findings, and we understand that those institutions are principally subordinate to the Ministry of Interior, of Justice, and to the Security Service of Ukraine. So creation of such an institution will provide us with the opportunity to be more effective in expert examination, forensic examination for finance, and getting objective findings and conclusions that will make it possible to present such cases for court review. Thank you, Gizo, for your explanation. Now we have no doubt that NABU needs some more people. Now the same question to Andriy Senyuk. Thank you. I also have mentioned in the first part of my presentation that we have the draft 8402, and it contains many things that can streamline our operations and improve them. And particularly, this is about such matters that on numerous occasions were raised in our approaches and even went beyond with their repercussions, and this is about powers for the acting head of the Special Prosecutor's Office when there is no appointed head, the procedure of election of the head of our Prosecutor's Office and other elected officials, and also this is for the special disciplinary procedure against prosecutors of our office, because presently they, together with the other prosecutors of the office, the local prosecutor's office, and the regional prosecutor's offices, they follow the same procedure, and the disciplinary liability is decided by the disciplinary commission, disciplinary and qualification commission at the prosecutor's office. It is suggested that we make special quota of our prosecutors for the Council of Prosecutors of Ukraine, for us to be represented in that self-governance bodies, and considering specific features of our operations. This is also true for some other issues of technical nature that at the same time they can considerably streamline our operation. In addition to that, in that draft, we have some procedures to streamline investigation of criminal cases. And this is about certain types of information. This is about the deadlines and the term of investigation. The court oversight increase the maturity of such issues can be solved by definition with some technical arrangement, and this can streamline our work and decrease the caseload for the court, and such things are important not just for us, NABU and the courts, but it is also true for all the pre-trial investigation, all the criminal justice bodies. In addition to that, we have another set of issues, and we have this head of staff, and this head of the prosecutor's office elected, and we have to create a special legal entity for the prosecutor's office, driving it out of any control from the prosecutor general's office with our own accounting, HR, and other issues stemming from this rearrangement. And the result of this that we demonstrated we in the future will be able with this rearrangement to have better performance, fighting corruption, because the only thing that constrains us and we will increase the results in terms of quality, improve the results in terms of quality and quantity. Thank you, Andrei, as far as I understand. Anastasia Radina tabled that draft, and she argues that they will be able to more effective and bring Ukraine closer to the EU. Oleh Pavlyshyn also mentioned caseload for the judges and two possible solutions: single judge handling its case on having more judges with a bench of 3. Can you discuss in more detail such plans, or perhaps you have some additional things with which additional arrangements can increase the manageable caseload for the judges? This courts and the law enforcement heavily depend on the quality of our legislation. It should be comprehensive, stable, predictable, and easy to interpret. Definite in its message. So with the high quality indicators to become achievable, we have to change the legislation that we now use. This is the criminal code. The criminal code, as far as I understand, is developed already. And this is one issue. And then the procedural code. And one of the lawyer of some law firm, I'm not mentioning any names, said that 90% of the closed cases he managed to achieve because he found some procedural irregularities connected to the fact that the legislation is vague and unstable. That is why we can think of two options. We can improve the code of criminal procedure or use the avenue approach of developing a new one. I am for the latter option. We can still improve, and the judges filed proposals to that effect on numerous occasions with their vision of the problems and possible solutions, as it is mentioned in the Code of Criminal Procedure, but we cannot see any result. And, the changes that can provide some relief or streamlining opportunities. Let's hope for some definite solution. About the number of judges handling a case or the number of judiciary with our court, of course, the caseload is very high. Sooner or later, we will have to deal with this issue and we'll then approach the
Дякую, пане Олеже. Пане Олександре, чи хотіли ви
High
доповнити?
Council of Justice
Доповнити, без іншого боку,
over this. In the appeal chamber, we have some problems related to our logistics, and we have to work with the staffers in a streamlined fashion. We have achievements in that area, but we have problems with energy supplies and the premises for adjudication for the appeal chamber. And I would like to thank the anti-corruption initiative of the EU for the generators provided for our immediate needs. Now we cannot provide with our logistics stable energy supply with the generator available in some cases. We have the same room used for court proceeding and for the conference of judges. We have to remove all the parties from the courtroom, and we cannot operate properly because for the for the appeal chamber we need premises which are not ad hoc. We're using some temporary shelter that's in the former courts building, but it does not comply with the new requirements of security, and otherwise we worked for 4 years. We have a facility in Preobrazhenska Street, but that building is not stable for our purposes, not fit. Last year they major repairs 106 million hryvnias were removed from our line, so we cannot do anything even the design work. I support Mr. Pavlyshyn, Judge Pavlyshyn. We have problems of logistics. The material support is badly needed. Thank you, Alexander, and we just wanted to discuss the state anti-corruption program with committee. I hear very often that strategy and strategic documents are never implemented or enforced for this matter. The implementation program that was developed for the strategy adopted last summer with approaching EU in Ukraine's accession, the easterly connection with the anti-corruption cases. Of course, our way to the EU and of NATO is paved with the anti-corruption achievements, and the program is being adopted by the government with the criteria, conditionalities of EU accession. We hope that that will provide for Ukraine's compliance with all the criteria, but I would like to answer this question from the viewer. And this is not just for anti-corruption bodies, but it also answers the question of this demand for justice. 34% before the war were ready. Now it's 84% of the people who are ready to protest actively against corruption. So we have to answer this demand with our anti-corruption program. So the higher efficiency of such work in a systemic way, that is contained in the state anti-corruption program with the implementation of the anti-corruption strategy. This is our priority according to the G7 ambassadors and the EU representatives for implementation. And we will work as one team for the government of the parliament together paving our way to the EU and letting MPs and other implementers know how important it is to implement such activities. Some of them were not mentioned by my colleagues yet. And Gizo, with Gizo, before the adoption of the program, we had that reconciliatory meeting with the Minister of Justice, Minister of Finance, plus so 300 detectives. Item was brought back, and we have to integrate the case management system. I believe in IT technologies, and we cannot lose any single leaf from that. And the anti-corruption program provides for some information on the MPs through the head of the specialized anti-corruption prosecutor's office, not just the general prosecutor general. We integrated all the activities offered by our colleagues with Alexander Semennykov. We had a special meeting, integrated the proposals for single judge handling simpler cases and also influencing the parties which abuse their procedural rights, and also expanded use of charges, pecuniary charges, and the case can be adjourned for all the lawyers of defense are absent. Only in that case, so the state anti-corruption program is the only systemic document that can answer the questions and satisfy the societal demand in that department. We are having this very exciting discussion, for me at least, and we have a great number of questions coming from the social media, and we still have some time to answer on these questions. One of them is about the anti-corruption court and the sanction cases. The question is, what difficulties you face when you review sanction cases? Can you help us with the answer? Well, the first difficulty is the time for review, 10 days for the first instance, for the appeal 5 days. And such deadlines can hardly be observed. These cases are usually very difficult, complicated, and it is not enough. And the second thing that catches one's eyes is that you have to review, you have to go to your chambers and immediately declare the sentence and publish it. We have other cases, civil and criminal, so it takes much time to draft and publish a decision. So these are the problems that one can immediately notice. They're all on the surface. And next question, what preventive things are done for reconstruction of Ukraine? Thank you for your question. National agency analyze corruption risks for recovery of Ukraine. The special task force at the presidential office issued recommendations. Now the recommendations are being implemented by the Ministry of Infrastructure in their regulations and assignments for disbursements from public funds and anti-corruption examination for all the drafts having to do with recovery and disbursement of such nature, the IT system, and we hope that that will provide for integrity and control, better control with video reporting for such funds. We believe that IT digitalization answers to the issue of integrity, and we have to prevent corruption and work with the EU initiative and their pilots, like Mykolaiv, for example. Thank you, Alexander. And another question to you, and they want us to discuss the issue of opening the registers. Do you suggest to open all the data after the victory, and can we receive any data before the victory, security-wise, anti-corruption-wise, business development-wise, all such risks? Can you answer? This is not for the national agency to close the register. That was done by the National Defense and Security Council. And because there were hacking attacks, they wanted to identify officials in the occupied territories, and in some cases they were such leaked and used. This is physical security. This is a matter of life and death for some citizens of Ukraine, a very grave one. And if this issue is regulated somehow, we can, of course, open such data. There's a question to Gizo. Two in one go. What's the illegal enrichment, illicit enrichment, and the illicitly
чіткого та зрозумілого
funds, and secondly, clear-cut distribution of powers between your three agencies here. That's what we have in this question. How can you regulate it? For the first question, I cannot share any data that we are active in that area, I can assure you, and presently the lack of such declarations is in the way, definitely. And this is not just one case, but we had several cases. We confiscated property of certain officials, and 216, that's the article which identifies our scopes of responsibilities. Sometimes we have overlaps naturally occurring, and the Prosecutor General can assign it more precisely, and we can regulate that with the assistance of their office, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Another question. I would like to compare the performance indicator in funds coming back to the budget of potentially back in the cases that you handle, and the portion of budgetary.
яке важко одразу порахувати і
It is a
відповісти.
difficult calculation, I believe, but I think this is a question about measurement. It's how effective we can be. Is it enough to have just this measurement? Is it comprehensive enough? I'm ready to answer this. The draft anti-corruption program and strategy, when we were developing it, we worked with the think tanks, and the effect from implementation such measures of annually is 2 billion hryvnia. So if we take our pre-war budget, this is 1/5 of all the
І це всі видатки на оборону, для прикладу.
this national budget, I mean, and all the expenditures for defense, for example. We could double the defense budget back then in last year. And the illicit enrichment and the suspects which have secret position or confidential
Правоохоронних органів за фактами
confidential details involved, 225 million hryvnia, which is more than all the expenditures for our agency. And this is just one block that we deal with. I'm sure that similar figures can be presented also by my colleagues here. I would like to add to this. I do not think that it is proper, it is legitimate to calculate the economic effect, because this is not a business. We are not sharing business indicators, we are not generating profit. But this year, we can say that all the funds that were provided for us much exceed the funding that we consume for all the agencies, I'm sure. All the changes in total. I support that. I would agree with that. With our speakers, that this is not just about the economic effect that we can see with the confiscated assets or recovered assets and the funds provided for the armed forces, but also prevention of crime, which never happen and never damage the economy. When we have this signal in society that nobody can violate the law regardless of their position, that increases the level of corruption by definition. It is a signal to society. Now discussion is coming to its end. I take some time for another couple of questions, but now you can have your conclusive remarks and perhaps you can share some plans and wishes for this year, which is going to be very busy indeed. Dear colleagues, anybody? I would like to take the floor. Implementation of the state anti-corruption program will provide not just with the European aspiration, but will make us international champions in combating corruption if we accomplish that. And also provide for high trust of the society, high trust in our victory, our integration, our accession to the EU and NATO. That's why let's work together with the Ukrainian nation and all of our people. Together we shall overcome the enemy, the corruption as our creeping enemy, and will become a prosperous state. The World Bank is very direct in their message. The rating of wealth is correlated with the level of corruption. The lower the corruption, the higher the wealth of every single Ukrainian and one's protection. Thank you, Gizo. The floor is yours. I'm very happy that all the people here are so clear in their messages. We understand that corruption should be defeated. This is the second front. The second front that is used actively by the opposition, by Russia, against Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian nation. So we have to understand that the results are very important. This is the second year of the sector war. So the hope is invested in such structures. The number of people we need more and more people, more and more fighters against corruption. And I hope that we will be joined by all the bodies, the governmental bodies in such efforts. Thank you, and thanks to the European Union for this support. Andriy Senyuk. I would like to summarize and say here that anti-corruption bodies in joint front are fighting corruption. And we would like to thank also colleagues from the National Agency for Corruption Prevention. We would like, we are receiving new materials all the time, even in the absence of the new declarations, and we still refer such cases to court and with the declarations that we received back in 2020. Thanks to the colleagues from the court, and they can appreciate the deadlines of course, they have opened their court reviews, they examine the cases expediently, and we still can be able to review such cases, observing the deadlines. And let me summarize. Last year, we had a considerable amount of work, and the result of such developments we will all see also this year, and they are going to be much better than last year, by all means. Thank you, Andrei. Oleh, Pavlyshyn. Well, our judiciary appreciates the importance of our work. We make our contribution to our victory and development of a state with the rule of law. So I would like to wish you that you stay. And the new president, we will have the new president, and we have all the security and victory in the world. Oleksandr Semennykov. Thank you for participation, and I would like to wish that we stay real, fully operational, well provided for judicial body to protect people and to observe the equality of arms, human rights, and objective adjudication, proper adjudication, and fair trial for everyone. Thanks to all the participants. These are not the only elements of the anti-corruption structure. We all are, because every single person here can join the forces. Don't give any bribes, don't be tolerant to corruption, and observe your immediate surrounding. We have many bodies that, by definition, can and do contribute to this fight for Ukraine as a democratic country. And unfortunately, we had some limitations for this call. We wanted to discuss investigation originally. Thank you for your contributions, and I would like Allan to make conclusive remarks.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot to our partners. Thanks to you, Iryna, for being an excellent moderator of this meeting. I think the meeting clearly confirmed that a lot of good work was done by you last year. Congratulations with that. And when you know that it was on the backdrop of extremely difficult months for Ukraine and for your institutions, I think it's even more impressive. You met an EU official recently who told you that it's good all what you're doing, we really appreciate it, but you need to be the very, very best in your area. And if there are any capacity constraints, we need to look into it. And I think that's also some of the issues that you highlighted today, issues of lack of capacity, you need more staff, you need to see some changes to legislation that can make your job better and easier. You need some political steps that can help you. Mr. Novikov mentioned the state anti-corruption program. I think that's a good example. You can count on our support. We will continue to be there for you, whether it's by providing generators or specialized training or IT support. We are there. And I think at the end of this meeting, I just want to wish you success in all what you're doing for 2023. Looking forward to even more encouraging reports 1 year from now. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Дякую всім.
Дякую вам.
Дякую всім, до побачення. Ми завершуємо нашу дискусію.
Thanks to all.